started, I want to make a few announcements and a few comments about the individuals who have helped put this together. First, I wanted to thank very much Jim Guest for coming, State Representative Jim Guest for coming and speaking. And also, the campaign staff have done an especially good job. Kent Snyder and Lou Moore and Joe Becker and everybody that has helped. They really deserve a round of applause for that. But I also want you to know that some of my family came with me today, and I have two of my grandchildren. And my wife is with me, but we have 18 grandchildren. One is very young, like a little over a week old. And we have one great-grandchild, but we have two grandchildren here today, Mark and Valerie, if they would stand up. Now, my wife Carol's here today, and she and I celebrated our 50th anniversary just a couple months ago. A lot of people wonder whether she encourages me or discourages me from what I do, but quite frankly, she's been very encouraging. When I was doubtful about what to do and what decision to make, she was always very supportive and encouraging, believing that the message was worthwhile and that I could present it. And when I would have doubts, she would always encourage me. And even today, when I have a day where I'm rather tired and I dread going through the security line at the airports, she says, no, you need to go. So she's really been a big encouragement to me. It's interesting that, in New Hampshire, the film that you just saw, they have a slogan on their plate, a license plate, born free or die. A great slogan, of course. But the motto for this state, Iowa, I think is very interesting and very good. Our liberties we prize and our rights will maintain. That is great. But I imagine if you went through the various states, you would find many, many great slogans, and they emphasize one thing, the responsibility of the states. These were written in time when states assumed a lot more responsibility for the protections of the liberties, and hopefully we can return to that status. But today we want to celebrate, and we want to be very positive because freedom is positive, and this is what this is all about. Not only is it a very positive program, but we also should have a lot of fun, and so far it sounds like you're having a lot of fun. But we're here to talk about life and liberty, and quite frankly, they're inseparable. Because how can you have liberty without life, and how can you have decent life without liberty? So the two go together. And of course, we all know life, liberty, and property are very, very important. That is the essence of liberty. But there's sometimes debates on exactly where our lives come from. I have a personal belief. I believe every one of us, each and every life comes from a creator. And therefore, our right to live is a natural right, and governments are instituted for a very limited purpose, and that is to protect life and to protect liberty. And that was the magnificence of our Constitution, was very limited in scope. It wasn't a license for government to do all the things that they do today. It was very narrow, and that was the genius genius of the Constitution. And not only was it there to limit the government, it was also there to sort out the difficult problems, not in a centralized, monolithic state in Washington, D.C., but it was to be worked out at the local level where people had a handle and more control over their government. You know, the importance of life, I think, is crucial. There's been an ongoing debate for the last 30 years about, whether life prior to birth deserved protection. And I want very, very limited government. I don't want very much government in Washington, but as an OB doctor, as somebody who's been involved in politics and somebody who has concern for life and liberty, I find it difficult not to defend a life a minute before birth, just as I would defend that life a minute after birth. But this is... Last week there was a case in the news where a woman was murdered and her baby, her fetus, she was pregnant, the fetus was killed as well, and there were 2 accounts of murder charges made against her. And so the fetus does have a legal right, and I think this is very important. I know as a physician, as an OB doctor, if I would ever have done anything to harm the fetus, I had liability. So this is a very legal thing. But to me, it's more of the confusion, the message that we send out to the next generation, because we're saying that you can pay me to take the life a minute before birth, but if the young woman that might throw her baby away the minute after birth, we arrest her. And there's an awful lot of inconsistency there. So to me, it's recognizing the importance of life. When we can preserve life, then we can deal with all the issues of personal liberty. And that, of course, is what we're interested in. And how do you preserve liberty? And we all feel blessed that we have had the opportunity to live in a country such as America, where we've had a more generous approach to this issue than in any other country. It's just that we have a lot to do before us to preserve that liberty, but I do not believe for a minute that we cannot, and that we will be able to achieve that task of preserving that liberty. There are a couple things in our law today that emphasizes the point that we no longer own our lives. We're no longer responsible for ourselves. The welfare warfare state introduces that notion that we have the nanny state, that we don't have responsibility to make our personal decision, that we take responsibilities from the parents on education and medical care and all these things, that we deliver it to the government. And that just undermines the whole principle of individual liberty and the right to life and the right to live and the right to be responsible. But one of the areas which I think is most abusive of this concept is the idea that we now live in an age, now for a good many years, way too many years, where it is acknowledged that the federal government owns all our income and we're permitted to keep a certain percentage. That is the terrible notion of the personal income tax, which we should get rid of. Today we still endorse the notion that we own property, but in truth we don't. We don't own it because we can't use it the way we want. We have to get permission. We either have to pay huge taxes on it or ask the government for 25 permits before we can even dig a ditch on our own property. So we have really undermined the concept of private property. We've undermined the concept of contracts in the marketplace, in the free market economy, because the government has so many regulations and rules about hiring and firing and pricing and transportation and all these things. So we're at a point now where the concept of private property has been seriously undermined, and we cannot reject this notion that owning property is key to the survival of a free market economy.